everybody, I'm Brian Mallow, and this is But Seriously. And I'm really excited about this show. It's different from anything I've done yet. I've only done about 10 shows, and I've had a single guest on each one, but we have 3 great guests, and I'm really excited to be talking to each of them individually and as a group. And the reason we're here is because of a brand new documentary called Science Friction. And it's made by some people I know. I happen to be in it. And it's just gone live this past week on, it may vary depending where you live, but here it's on Amazon Prime and it's also on Tubi television. Tubi is free with commercials and cheap to rent on Amazon and well worth it. And so the topic, it's everything I like. We got comedy, we got science communication. And so since we have so many guests, let's just jump into it. I want to, oh, see? Okay, hold on a second. Let me introduce you to my first guest. So, Emery Emery. Emery, let me get rid of this bug that I got rid of the button for. Hey, Emery, yeah, you don't have to point because look what I did.
No, see, I can do this. We could talk like this. How's it going?
You're facing the wrong way.
Son of a dog. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
Emery, yes. Just so everyone knows that I didn't mess up, that's not a typo, I didn't get redundant on your name, I didn't put that you're actually Emery Emery the second, right?
Thank you for not doing that.
But I noticed you use it. Yeah.
I am Emery Emery. That's my real name, and I was named after my dad. So you didn't do anything wrong. My dad did.
Your dad did something terribly wrong, and that's the least of it. So Emery, everybody, is an old comedian friend of mine, and when I say old, we're talking last century, and not really the tail end of last century. I don't know when it was, but I've known this guy for quite a long time. Were you coming out of? Are you one of those Kansas comedians?
Yeah, I was from Kansas City. I think you and I maybe met. I could be wrong about this because I have no good memory retention whatsoever. I thought we probably met at San Francisco, a competition there.
That's
San
possible.
Francisco competition. Yeah.
Oh, no, that's not possible. Because I didn't do that until way later. We met, it has something to do, I was living in Austin still. I hadn't been to San Francisco. We go way back. Because I left Austin in 1992.
Yeah.
So we met before that back in Austin. So,
well, this has
Emery,
got to be so exciting for your viewers to watch.
I am excited. And let me give you this, just one other credit. Besides your storied comedy career, I want to say not too long ago, but boy, does time fly fast. I don't know what year you edited the Aristocrats documentary.
2005, that was released. I worked on it for 2+ years, and the Aristocrats. If you wanna enjoy 2 guys we recently lost, go watch the Aristocrats and watch the 2 superstars of that film. You're going to see Saget and you're going to see Gilbert. It's a great film. I'm very proud of it. I shouldn't be, but I am.
I know it's a little shouldn't be because it's dirty, but what a great what a great documentary.
It's a love story to comedy. It's a love story to jazz. And it's a love story to the art of performance.
Exactly. I like it's a really interesting documentary. Let's, nice to meet you, Emery, says the audience. Oh yeah, I forgot. There is a possibility that we'll get some comments, and I just have to pull up this window so I see them. So, Emery, I'm going to stick a pin in you or something, and let's meet the producer of Science Friction, Brian Dunning.
Hey,
hello. Brian. Now, I don't know you as well. I think we've always known of each other, but it was because of this Science Friction project that we got to know each other a little. Because about 2 years ago, we did some production, and now I just realized what I wanted to show. I had some images of how we did it because it was really interesting. But because you guys are all in California and I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina, so we did a remote shoot where I got a videographer here with pro gear and we connected via FaceTime. So I was talking, and you were in your car somewhere, pulled over, and
Yeah.
Emery was at home, and I have like a studio. I built my bedroom into a studio, and this is where I was saying, "Oh my God, I put this shirt."
You're
I
wearing
cannot-
the same shirt. As far as I know, you own one shirt. And so by
I
that, I know how your science comedy career is going.
I I had made a note to myself, didn't write it down, but I did make a note to myself, don't wear that shirt. It's hanging right there, don't wear it. But you guys were all dressed so nice, I quickly changed shirts. So Brian, I don't know that much about you except that you've had a very long-running podcast, the Skeptoid, and 15 years you celebrated not too long ago?
Yeah, something like that. It's crazy. So the
What is
Skeptoid
Skeptoid? Yeah.
podcast, we talk about basically science versus pseudoscience. Each week we just pick one topic that's popular, that a lot of people believe, but that's not true. And if there's much more interesting real science or real history behind it. So living in the whole world of science versus pseudoscience, trying to find an interesting way to communicate real science rather than resorting to sensationalism. I mean, that's very much what led to this movie, because that's what the movie is all about. Because no matter how hard guys like all of us try to communicate real, true science as entertainingly as possible, so many of these TV shows and some of the people involved in them are literally working against us by marginalizing and just simply being disdainful of anything that's true and real, and just making up some fake narrative because they think it brings eyeballs to the TV screen. Aliens built the pyramids, et cetera, et cetera.
Wait, why'd you bring that one up? Because okay, Brian, before we talk too much more about the film, let's meet our third guest. Thank you for being here. And Matt Kirshen, so good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Don't worry, I got one of these. Even though you're just a comedian, I got one of these for you too.
Thank you. Steady it, push it that way.
You're not
Left,
even
right.
just a comedian either, though. You're a science geeky comedian. You're like the younger, smarter, funnier version of me. Or maybe I'm just being tricked by the English accent, but you got that going for you too.
That goes a very long way. It really that does a lot of work. But yeah, we met through Emery and through this stuff, but we both have similar sort of trajectories. I still consider stand-up and comedy writing my day job, but I did a math degree and I have sort of a foot in the science camp, and I do this podcast that you've been on, Probably Science, where we go through the week in science news with comedians.
How long have you been doing Probably Science? And you have a co-host.
Yeah, too long is the short answer. We've been doing it for a long time. I think we're getting up to like 10 years now. It's silly, but I think we might have actually gone over 10 years. But yeah, it's and so from that I have the kind of foot in the science camp, and I've been on and written for science TV shows as well, and have run up against a couple of the things that we might be chatting about today, and did chat about in the film.
That we ended up meeting through Emery because, I know that we must have talked about this a year and a half or so ago, but our mutual friend and fellow comedian Kevin Kataoka, old roommate of mine, for years he told me that I should contact you, but I don't know you.
He's mentioned you to me as well. Yeah, Kevin's the best. Kevin's such a great guy, and he's if you're not familiar with him, check him out. It's really funny comedian. He's written on a bunch of great shows as well. But I didn't know until recently that the two of you actually lived together. I knew you knew each other. I didn't know you were.
When I first moved to San Francisco, but he told me probably for years that I should reach out to you, but I mean, you're just some guy I don't know. I didn't know you, so I didn't reach out to you. And then when we connected because of this, it was like, why didn't we connect before? It's like we have a lot in common. Yeah.
So much.
So now that we've met the cast, let's do something crazy that I've never done before, and it's this. If no one else is, I'm thrilled. and it doesn't end there. Just when you thought it couldn't get any better, Da-da-da. That's right. I took the time to make them do that too.
I'm going to call you Cyberboy from now on. You know
and
all the
then-
computer things.
And we can stick that in the middle. Why not? Um, so, all right. So there's a lot for us to talk about, but let me start with you guys. Brian, you started talking about sort of the origin story for the documentary, but Emery, the last big project that I know you worked on was the Aristocrats, which is about, I would say, the science of comedy. So there's the slenderest connection there. And
I've had at least 7 or 8 other projects between the Aristocrats and this, but none of them matter.
They didn't rise up and get my attention. No,
They all aired on Instagram, by the way.
So you guys, tell me, how did this get? What was the initial idea? Like, why did you even want to make science fiction?
Right. So, I mean, doing what I do for a living, always in this world of science communication gone wrong, I'd been exposed, and as you mentioned, the Skeptoid podcast is 15 years ago, so I'm talking about going all the way back 10, 12 years ago now. There was people who were scientists who were blogging and things about bad experiences they'd had going on these TV shows and being deceptively edited out of context, trying to make it sound like they said, yes, scientists do believe that this giant monster shark here is real, whatever kind of nonsense you can imagine. And in some of these cases, these became kind of big foo-for-ahs in the science communication community. And I know in at least 2 cases, Discovery Channel was they had to go back and re-edit the show to make it a little bit more honest and re-release the show. And of course, then the show lost its teeth because, what?
What do you mean they had to? Because I just have the impression that what do they care? It's like they're making a show. What made them have to? Something like
you shamed them into re-editing a show?
No, I didn't. But 2 of the guys who are in our film, and that's oh, help me, I'm so bad with names. We've got so many people in the film. We've got Matt Waddell, who is the dinosaur scientist we talked to, and then Jonathan Davis, who is the. I don't think anything got re-edited on Fader, but okay. Jonathan Davis, the shark scientist, both of the appearances that they talk about in science fiction actually got re-edited by, I think they were both Discovery Channel, and re-released those episodes with the changes in there. And I don't think they had to. I think they were just getting enough negative publicity, and it's easy enough for them to do that they just went ahead and did it.
Yeah.
So
I'm sorry, but before we go further, maybe we should give the audience a brief description of what is science fiction.
So science fiction, it's a documentary. The entire thing is interviews with scientists who went on these TV shows as kind of talking head experts, or shows like Dr. Oz on television or Oprah, and were then either really badly treated by the hosts or literally deceptively edited, like taking half of one sentence, cutting it and putting it here to make it sound like they said the opposite of what they actually said. We've got a number of cases like that in the film. And I should add that there were many more that we spoke to, and even some that we shot, that later changed their minds and decided they didn't want to be in the film after all. Because, I mean, after all, being in a movie like this, you're sort of burning your bridges with these TV networks. And
I hope you appreciate that.
Yes, I do. But you can also make the argument, hey, why would you want to preserve your relationship with a network that is going to treat you this shabbily when you go on for free to create their content for them, and they deceptively edit you? Why would you want to preserve that? You can have that discussion all day long, but also you got to remember, working scientists do not get paid anything. They get very little publicity personally, and doing something like this may end up being the highlight of their career in some cases. You got to remember, most working scientists will never make a discovery that's earth-shaking. They have to just be part of this process, and 99% of science is failing.
The best they can do is be quoted out of context to make it appear they believe in some mythological ocean river.
So I absolutely respect their decisions. We were disappointed, but But what we've got in the movie is still great, but it's a small part of what could have been in the movie if everyone wanted to participate.
Yeah.
If everyone was comfortable burning the bridges.
Yeah, that's what I've been saying, that it's like, I've maybe burned some bridges, but they weren't really great bridges because,
Right.
for I appeared in a show for which they approached me because I was a science comedian. And then they didn't want me to be funny, first of all, because the tone is all drama. They didn't want any funny. I'm like, okay, well, all right, that's weird. So they didn't want me to be funny, and the clips were funny. The clips were funny. It was strange evidence, and it was absurd stuff, and I didn't know what else to say. But they didn't want to pay me like an actor. They really wanted me to be on screen for free, like it was a documentary and I'm just being interviewed. But then you'll see how they treated me. They kind of treated me like an actor, and they did whatever they wanted with me. It's like, well, you didn't pay me to be an actor. Yeah. I don't know what kind of experiences. Yeah. We may jump around a little bit, but Emery, I'm like, how did you guys have known each other a long time? How did this crystallize into this actual project? This kind of thing bothered you?
Well, it's interesting.
Emery?
I mean, it's always made me crazy that what happens here. And when Brian came to me, the other Brian below you, and said that he wanted to shoot this stuff, it's interesting that I have a different memory than he has. And I remember him saying he wanted to shoot these interviews so that he could make them available to the education, world. And I said, well, I want to make a movie. I'd much rather make a movie. He doesn't remember it that way, right, Brian? You don't remember that aspect of it, do you?
Well, I'd say you're kind of halfway in between, because so Skeptoid Media, which is my company that produced this, is a 501c3 educational nonprofit. And so generally everything that we produce, including this movie, we produce educational materials for it, and we make it available for free to educators. So I don't know if I ever had any ideas for this other than as a movie, although we probably at some point talked, hey, let's chop it up into pieces and use each expert segment as a separate little lesson plan. We probably talked about something like that, but we do plan to make this available for free to educators. We just haven't gotten around to making the educational materials for it yet. We're still in the middle of distribution.
You may have heard, I'm Brian Mallow, educator, and I have a specific... whatever.
Fine, give him a free copy. Jeez,
I'll send you the Tubi link.
and then how does Matt get involved? And he becomes like kind of a linchpin in the documentary. He opens it up, and maybe he even closes it.
Yeah, I mean, when someone lives in your house for a long time, they kind of owe you. And so that's the only reason I let people live in my house for a long time. They have to be very talented, and I have to know that I'm going to need them one day. So, there's a method to my madness. Matt was a roommate for a long time, and if I call Matt and ask him to do something, he knows it's going to be a great project, and he's going to say yes. And that's what happened here.
Yeah, I generally trust Emery's judgment to not be putting me in something that's going to be humiliating. Unless that's the point of it, and that wasn't the point of this one, and the ones that is the point of, they're not available for educational purposes. Yeah. So
this is actually about the humiliation we're talking about. Previous humiliation. Yeah.
I will say this, that like, I don't think anyone I don't feel like I was burning any bridges being on this project in this movie, and I'll tell you why. Because most TV producers don't think that they're doing this. I don't think so. And I think this is one of the things that I said in the movie, is that most of this isn't done with malice. It's it's really done more because TV production is always under budgeted and always over time, and they're just trying to get this thing that they've already decided they want. And also, since actually filming the bits for this movie, I've worked on a bunch more science shows, like more behind the scenes, where I've stayed on through post. And I've just seen how much, like, luckily with the projects I worked on, either me or Andy, who's my probably science co-host, were on it through post. So there was someone who kind of helped write the science at the beginning and stayed on it through. But you notice what happens is there's often like the pre-production team, and they come up with what they want the show to be, and then it gets handed over to the people who film it, and then it gets handed over to the team that edits it. And quite often they're so separate that by the time it gets to the post-production, they don't even know the initial thing that we were originally talking about. And they don't understand this, and they're just like putting these things together that seem to make sense to them and telling the story that they want to tell. And they're so far removed from the original concept or the truth that I think that's how so much of that creeps in. And then there's the more like cynical one where you're like, okay, you've set out from the beginning to say that there is such a thing as mermaids or unicorns, and everything is working towards this point, and it's been there from the very beginning, and you've been very directly bullshitting the contributors. Right.
Yeah, what is the friction?
The friction is right there. That's what we go after. We go after mostly those monsters. The only monster in those shows that we're talking about, which we talk about Bigfoot, we talk about Chupacabra, these shows that we go after, they talk about all these monsters when in fact they need to just turn the camera around back at the producers and go, here's the real monster. This guy's lying to you. They know they're lying to you, and they don't care they're lying to you. That's the monster. There are real monsters, and they're making
because actually,
monsters.
If you see some of the films made by Bigfoot, they're actually done with the highest ethical standards. Like the real Bigfoot, like he
has a heart.
Nothing is done without consent. Yeah, like people, like all the scientists who contribute to any of Bigfoot's movies have right to refusal of what they say. There's no spoon feeding them.
And this applies whether you're human or if you're like some kind of swamp monster or that.
Yeah, and I think that just goes to show that we shouldn't prejudge anyone because he actually works to the highest moral standards. And
I mean, you're a little young and you didn't grow up in America, but I think we all learned that lesson from the Munsters. You shouldn't judge them.
Right.
So,
Brian, I didn't really answer your question about. Just let me be brief. The reason I got
which question?
I'm trying to point the right direction here. There we go.
Yeah, this is like the Brady Bunch. All of a sudden, I realized
the reason I had Emery direct this, and I agreed to Emery's request to have this guy be in it. I'll tell you, I like you mentioned, I've known Emery for years and years and years, and when I was thinking about how this film should be shot, it was going to be an interview film, and I obviously thought of the Aristocrats. And I loved the way that was done. And I know Paul Provenza was the director, but Emery was the editor. And kind of we all know that there's a lot of Emery in the Aristocrats. And that's how I wanted this film to be. So I grabbed Emery on the basis of, first of all, he's a good friend and I love him and trust him and would work with him all day long. But second, his creative work in the Aristocrats was exactly what I wanted for this film. And then when we had all of our experts edited into the timeline, it's like we needed things to segue, And Emery, do you want to talk about how we got Matt and why we got Matt for segueing the segments?
Yeah.
Well, I'll start with Brian Dunning has trouble with humor, and when I started laying down some timelines that had some really nice humor in it, at one point Brian was like, "This is a serious document. Are we sure we want to do this? I'm not sure." And so everyone knows the Hollywood story. I put in a lot of humor so that when he told me to pull some out, there would be some left, and it scared the hell out of him. And I got in exactly what I wanted. That was Matt was I knew that I could ask Matt to help give me some glue and some transitions from A to B, C to D, and so on, and actually get a story kind of line moving. This kind of documentary, much like the Aristocrats, it doesn't have what you'd think of as a true narrative, but a viewer wants to get a sense of a narrative, and you fake a narrative kind of by having nice smooth transitions from one point to the other, and I knew that I could ask Matt to help fill in those spots that would just be a dead stop and a new start and that sort of thing. So
Yeah, and you mentioned
that's
his name to me. And
Mhm.
Matt, I don't know if you even remember, because this was like 12 years ago, but I had a big live party for, I think it was the 250th episode of my podcast in
And you did a live
Irvine.
comedy show.
And you came down all the way to friggin' Irvine, and I
I
probably
remember
paid
it.
you one beer.
I remember it clearly. I remember enjoying the show, but also one of the people there, and I don't know whether it might have been Susan. I now can't remember, but someone who was at that show took a photo, and that ended up being my Wikipedia photo for a long time. So that's the other reason why I know. I remember that show very clearly, because whenever I looked at my Wikipedia, there was that picture.
That had to
I
be
also want to
Susan.
say, it probably was. I will say there is a lot of Emery in the Aristocrats, but like you said, but also having lived with him, I can say that there is a lot of the Aristocrats in Emery.
True. True.
I do live a lifestyle of aristocratic
Should we
style.
Leisure.
should we watch a clip of the documentary?
Okay, if you think you can stomach it.
I don't know if I can, because there's a lot
So
of me in it.
before-
I just didn't want people to get the impression that it's like an hour and a half of me yelling about them mispronouncing my name or something.
Here's what you're about to see. See, that's when you ask the director to set up the clip. It's that easy to solve this panic of yours. And I know that you were very, very busy, making chyrons, but and you're a bit overwhelmed. But I cut together, because we have Brian Mallow and we have Matt Kirshen, two of the stars of science fiction. I pulled a bunch of their clips together, and I made this beauty clip of you two working so perfectly in science fiction. That's what you're about to see. Yes, it has a lot of Mallow in it, but there's a reason for that. This is his show, and he's friggin' amazing. Brian Mallow, man, I don't know if you use caffeine. If you don't, do not. But Brian Mallow, when the camera turns on and he is really bothered, upset, or amazed by something, he takes it to 11. Don't even touch that guitar.
Yeah, you know what? I did just rewatch the documentary, and I gotta say, I'm the loudest thing in it. Nobody else is yelling. I'm a comedian. All they did was misgender me or something, say what my job was, and I'm acting like
You're a science journalist. We know that.
Exactly.
A real science journalist.
I think we're about to
Specific beat.
understand these references in this clip. So, all right, here's what I set up, and a clip that you prepared for us. Let's see what happens here.
I'm a comedian and a writer, but I have half a finger in the science world. And I get people, friends of mine, going, "Oh, you're a scientist." I'm not a scientist, not at all. But people make that mistake, and they try and hire me to do things where I'm always very clear. No, I'm a comedian who knows a bit about science and plays in that world. But you will get represented that way. My friend Brian gets it a lot.
So far, I've only seen one clip of Strange Evidence that I'm in.
Science journalist Brian Mallow
They identified me as a science journalist. Then they go on to say he examines
the latest advances in robot technology and believes they could explain the bizarre tentacled appearance of the object in the footage.
That's what I
So
believe.
I'm a science journalist with a specific beat. Well, no, I'm a comedian, science comedian, but I do not identify as a journalist. And if they're calling me a science journalist, that just
You
makes
still
me
have that
wonder.
shirt?
There's another person identified as a science journalist.
You gotta hope it isn't dangerous.
Maybe he's a ventriloquist. What do I know? In fact, in the same episode I'm in, there's a segment about the devil's seed.
Now, a boat full of people are drawn to a strange vision.
These people clearly don't think they're in danger.
It's about some people are on a boat, and you see this imagery that's foggy or smoky and red,
A boat full of people are drawn to a strange vision.
and something very mysterious. They're playing up the mystery.
And then,
Murder, She Wrote doesn't tell you this guy was the murderer in the first minute. There's no show, so you go, oh, could it be this? Could it be that?
There's a place somewhere else in the ocean that's kind of like a Bermuda Triangle where many ships are lost.
You've probably heard of the Bermuda Triangle, but there's an equivalent out in the Western Pacific where ships are more likely to go down for some reason, which many sailors fear.
But then after all this talking and building up, and it's like, could this be it? Another person comes on and goes,
The Devil's Sea, by definition, is the 750-mile stretch between the coast of Japan and the island of Iwo Jima. But this footage was taken on the other side of the Pacific, near Hawaii. So it must be something else.
they spent, like, okay, what did we just experience? They just built up a mystery and then said, well, it can't be that, because that isn't even where it happened. The video itself wasn't originally posted as a mystery. It was posted as a lava bomb.
The lava bomb exploded right next to the boat, blasting it with steam and hot rocks.
Was it a Devil's Sea? Is it another Bermuda Triangle? Or is it what the guy who posted it said it was? I was on a tour boat and there's a volcano. Why are you asking me if it's a Devil's Sea? There was no... It's absurd.
The passengers are lucky to have even survived it all.
The most mysterious thing in all of this is why they thought they could get away with this. But, I mean, they do, though. Okay, that's our first clip.
I think the most mysterious thing in all of this is how they managed to get the security camera footage of you going to your desk.
Oh, so let me tell you. Let me tell you what happened there. But also, it's just too weird. It's not this. It's the same shirt. It's the same shot. It's everything. Okay. So let me get the other clip ready. So I used to work at the Science Museum here. And I arranged for a little studio space that we could use when their production team was in town, and we met in this little room. And, you know, the thing is, I didn't really know what kind of show it was going to be. Strange Evidence, I didn't really know. I never watched it before. And they didn't send me the clips till the night before, and it was all Skeptoid stuff. It was like, oh, I thought these were going to be science things that you wanted me to comment on, but they were all ghost lava monsters, a skinwalker, spirit walkers and UFO stuff. And it was like, oh. And then, like I said, they didn't want me to be funny.
Had you never owned a television before?
What's that?
Had you never owned a television before?
Well, yes, but
Has this man never owned a television before? And that was how we.
Or is it? Yeah, it's. But there's good science programming. Like, I mean, when I was posting about this show, I want to say that there's good television science programming out there. But then there's this other kind of stuff where they started. So anyway, we were at the museum, and then they said, could we get some shots of you, like, walking up the stairs? And then could we get an office and have you at a computer? I think they knew what they were going to do ahead of time. Because,
they knew.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, we borrowed a communications guy. Could we use his office? So they shot that. That wasn't security camera. That was just a filter. That was a special effect in Final Cut Pro or something. But it was just footage of me.
Another lie.
A shot of me walking up, exactly, a shot of me walking up the stairs, a shot of me in my office where I keep up with the latest in robotic. I don't even do that as a comedian.
Ken Fader was really, really pleased when we came in to shoot him. He's got an
Which one was
amazing, he's the archaeologist, and he talks about the Disney stuff. And
Atlantis.
Yep, Atlantis. And when we were done shooting, he said, I know you guys are doing this right, because you didn't walk in immediately like everybody else does and say, could you put the smock on? And I'm like, wow, that's true. That's really it. We do have smocked people in our thing, but they wanted to wear their smocks.
By smock, you mean like the lab coat, like the
lab coat. Yeah, put on the lab coat thing. And that every
I don't think scientists call them smocks, but go ahead.
Oh,
yeah,
right. Well,
smock to me. I was thinking like an artist, like a painter. Hold the easel, and it's just.
Yeah. Well, he was also impressed that I didn't know what a lab coat was. he was shocked by it, and he was surprised, and it communicated to him that he didn't have to worry about the edit because we weren't coming in trying to make something look a certain way. We were just coming in for a story.
Yeah.
Which is how I do it. That's how
And just to be really clear on, like, I think people should go check out, you know what, the video description has links to the trailer, links to where you can see science fiction on Amazon or Tubi, and there's also links to everybody's social media and Skeptoid and probably Science, everything in the video descriptions. But
and you can Prime Video and Tubi are the two places, and you're left with Tubi or not Tubi. Because you can go to Prime Video.
And Tubi, if you want to watch it for free, but if you don't mind sitting through commercials, or Prime for a couple bucks, you can rent it.
Or you can just find Emery through Craigslist, and he'll bring you a copy.
Missed connections.
I'm on double list now. Craigslist, no.
But there's, some of those that, you had this shark guy, and he thought that they were there to cover his research. And they spent a lot of time with him talking about his research. And then at the end, they asked him about this legend, this mythological shark thing. And he talked about it. But what the kind of stuff we're talking about that isn't right is like when you see a movie review that says fantastic, and what the review said was a fantastic waste of time. That's what they did to this guy. They shaved off the part where he says, well, here's what people think. And then he told what they think, and they just used it. And so here's a guy who's really a shark scientist who has a reputation to be concerned about, and they're making it look like he believes in some monster. And now
he lives in this lovely little small town. Where does he live, Brian? I can't remember. At the time, he lives in this little small town. I don't know if we flew to Georgia to shoot him but we went down to shoot him, maybe New Orleans, and he's excited. He's on Shark Week. His dream come true is happening. The town gathers around. His family is sitting in this room. There's more people in this room than the fire department should allow, watching this amazing moment of his life. And that's what he watches. He is horrified. He is horrified to see that they have made him look like he's promoting an absolutely obvious pile of baloney.
And it cuts across. I like that you have marine biologists, archaeologists. There's a COVID story in there, and it's such bad misinformation. They're talking about something, and the program in question makes it seem like it's talking about COVID, but it was published a couple years before COVID. It was about other coronaviruses, which we know SARS-CoV-2 is related to these other coronaviruses.
Yeah, which is basically common cold. But at the end of the day, the reason to watch science fiction is we settle once and for all every confusing fact about COVID. Just go watch science fiction and you'll have all the answers.
That's actually an interesting part of the story, because the movie was done. So we're talking 2020 sometime. The movie was done, and we're starting to send it around. And people I'm telling about what it's about, they go, great, I can't wait to see what you guys have to say about COVID. And I'm telling people, well, actually, we shot this before COVID, so we don't say anything about COVID. And I got that feedback enough times. They were saying, nobody's going to care about your movie if you don't talk about COVID. And if you do talk about COVID, it's going to be the talk of the town. So we actually had to go back, and that opens up a whole box of other stories.
Sure.
Finding someone to talk about COVID. We wanted someone to talk about COVID. And I was in touch with, what another horrible time to forget someone's name. Who was the girl in New Zealand? The lady in New Zealand.
I can't say her last name. I don't know how to say her full name.
Okay, she's amazing, and she's awesome. She has bright pink hair. I hope people know who I was talking about. I'll give you the name if we can put it in the show notes or something. But she's basically Dr. Fauci in New Zealand. She's on the TV news every night talking about it. And I was in touch with her. We're talking over email. And she said, look, I can't do this. And the reason why is because the number of death threats that I get every single day is completely over the top. And I implore you guys, if you do find someone willing to go on your film and talk about COVID, please don't get a woman, because a woman is so much more likely to get death threats, rape threats, et cetera, everything that she has to go through on a daily basis. And that was very horrifying. But because of another very valid subject we might talk about today, our film is very heavy on white men. And we were trying to make the cast as diverse as we could. But of course, we were limited to the people that Discovery Channel had already pre-selected. And they want Indiana Jones, so we had a bunch of white men to select from. So we're trying to provide a more diverse cast whenever we can. So we are talking
also. Yeah, also, I think it's fair to say that also that people who lie in the way that we're trying to expose tend to be white men. It's not our fault.
You're saying white men are the biggest liars?
Pathological.
How do we know that's true?
You're from serial killers and now liars
Some
as well.
of my best friends aren't white men, Matt.
So, you know,
Martina McLaughlin is the name you were looking for, I think. Martina McLaughlin was the woman from Ireland that you were trying to think of.
No, the woman from New Zealand.
New Zealand.
The bright pink hair. I'm going to look her up as soon as someone else starts talking, because
Jennifer,
I think she'd rather not I give her
I
name.
got a
so
comment that says that I should say good things about Hacking the Planet, which is a program I was in.
Were you in that?
On the Weather Channel with John Rennie and
Jennifer. That wasn't Brushwood's show. That was Hacking the System.
Okay,
Hacking the Planet with John Rennie. That's right. Okay.
I'm not sure what year it was. It was several years ago, and Jennifer edited it. Great editor, and that show, I think. Oh, but you know what's funny? I don't know if I. So you put out Science Friction, and it appears. I have a very small IMDb page, and there it says, like, the joke carries over because it says that I played myself, and then it said science journalist. So there it is. I'm playing myself science journalist. But then I look down a little farther, and on Hacking the Planet, I also played myself, and it actually says science correspondent. But that was with my knowledge. I think they had consent to call me that. But suddenly it's like, maybe I am. But I don't keep up with the latest advances. And
is correspondent considered, loftier than journalist?
They didn't want to use, because the way that worked was John Rennie was the main host, and throughout the show via Google Hangouts, he would check in with me and Cara Santa Maria. So we were like correspondents, and that was our function on the show. And so I was okay with it, because that's the role I was serving on that show. It's like I would check in, and the three of us would discuss some ideas, and John would go off and do some interviews. And so that was all up front. One thing I learned, and Matt, I wonder if you've had to deal with this, it's like, at least now I know from this and some other situations that if I'm in anything, I want to be able to specify what they put under my name. What they call me.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I think the thing I learned more from this, but also just from having worked on a bunch of things now and just being aware of it, is just never saying anything that you're not happy for them to use. Because like you were saying with that guy with the shark story, where you can talk for 35 minutes and then say one sentence at the end that you're like, that's not quite accurate, and that'll be the thing that they're actually that they've been putting in. I remember we worked a project I worked on recently. I was on the Skype call with one of the scientists who we were going to have on the show, and right at the beginning, and we were on a group call, so I couldn't sort of ask him more about this. But like right at the beginning, he was like, "Look, I just need you to know that I will not say anything that you tell me to say that is untrue." Like he sort of specified that right at the beginning. He was like, I'm not gonna. And then once we sort of gave him all the reassurances that that's not anything that we would want to do, and the only thing we might ever do is say, like, is it fair to say this, or is it true? Is it correct to say this? Which And then he was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, you can do that." And then I'll say either like yes, and I'll give you the thing you need, or no, it's actually more like this. And like once he knew that was the way we were coming at it, he was relaxed. But before that, his guard was up, and clearly because he's been in a situation like this before, where he's had been on a shoot and had the producers go like, "Okay, so we need you to say the rocks were formed because of this," and he's like, "I can't say that because that's not accurate. That's not." Yeah, but we need it for a Oh, can you just give us this line?
That? What's so amazing about that, because I've done that every time I've done one of these talking head things for a show. And at some point during the interview, usually at the beginning, I'll say the exact same thing. I'll tell the director or whoever it is that's there, it's usually a 2 or 3 man camera crew. I'll tell them, I'm not going to say anything that I'm going to be careful about how I say things, because I don't want the sentences edited and rearranged. And I'm not going to say anything that's not true. And I often see them, they like do an eye roll, say, "Oh, great, another one of those. We came all the way out here, and this is all going to end up on the cutting room floor." How amazing is that? That means that they go out to every one of these shoots with the intention of deceptively editing people.
And just to be clear, there is the correct way of doing it, which is what we said we will potentially do with this guy, and that's also to give you a sort of peek behind the curtain. That's what Emery did with me at times during this thing, where he's like, "I need to have this thing that gets from here to here. Like, can you say something like this, or can you give us a point on this?" And I would either kind of go like, "Yeah," or I would go like, "I don't think that actually fits what I think, but I can say this," and then then I'd give him the soundbite, and so it's like you can work with filmmakers and TV makers in an ethical way to kind of go like,
right.
You need this linking device for your narrative, or you need to get this point across for your show. But what's the way of saying this that is okay with you, or that you agree with, or that's within your belief system and ethical framework? And
when I'm asking someone to do what I asked you to do in this film sometimes, I also, and I said this to you, I also said, well, first of all, anything that you give me, if you later find out that it's not working, I'll show it to you and you can tell me, let's fix that or take it out. So I gave you the comfort knowing that you did have control over whether you'd be misrepresented or not.
Except there's a part in the documentary where he says you can't use that, and apparently you did use it. It's very funny though.
Yeah. What you don't know is he said, "Okay, you can use it."
I think he was being a comedian.
That's the whole reason that made it in is because of the irony and perfect.
Yeah, and like what you're describing, that's okay because you're negotiating it and you're like upfront about it. I feel like I could be wrong. I liked the producer that I was working with, and it was just the two of us, and I felt like he liked me, but he kept trying to get me to say things so there were these mysterious clips, and the idea is first they build up the drama, and then they maybe explain what it is. But you don't know for sure if they're going to come down on the side of it's still a mystery or...
Tell us about the girl that got knocked down in Mexico.
Yeah. So that's not in we have a second clip. Is that in the second clip?
It might be. I'm not sure.
Well,
you might
I
want to
know
wait.
that one part of it is
matter.
not, I think, because... So there's this clip, and it's like a street scene, and I think they said it's in Mexico, and there's a little girl, and all of a sudden she gets slammed to the ground, and they're saying it's it's a ghost thing. But in the video I saw, I still don't understand, but I see a wire. There is a wire that we see, and your dog is licking your head.
She'll go for 10 minutes if I let her. It makes no sense. That's enough.
There's a wire in the shot, and it still makes no sense. It's hard to piece together what happened, but I see this wire, and so they're saying ghost, and I go, well, I see a wire, and they said, well, the first version we saw of the video was lower resolution, and we couldn't see the wire, so could you just pretend that you saw that version? And, it's okay to create, I hated that, but it's okay to create this arc, I guess, and this drama thing, but one of them was about some skunk ape or something that's like a Bigfoot of Louisiana. And they wanted me to say, like, if I was in a tent and I heard the sound that this guy heard, I would be terrified. And I just couldn't play that up. I couldn't pretend that I'm afraid of monsters. That's what they really wanted me to do. I'm not going to pretend that it's like it might be a bear, but I'm not going to act like who knows what it might be.
Could this be the missing link? I was looking up, by the way, a few minutes ago. I was looking up because I couldn't remember the name for it, but there's Betteridge's law of headlines. This is about newspaper headlines originally. A tech journalist called Betteridge coined it, but Ian Betteridge is his name. But the law, the adage states, any headline that ends in a question mark can be answered by the word no. I think that's just as true of these shows as well. Like, could this be the no? Is this the no?
No.
But so
I like to imagine, Brian, you giving them something, pretending like you were going to give them something they might be able to use. So you listen to the sound and then you go, if I heard that when I was in the woods, I would definitely go, there's got to be a great explanation for this.
Right.
I'd love it if you gave them that and they used it.
You know, there were certain things like there were plenty of opportunities to make funny remarks, but they're like, the tone is mystery. And then there's like, well, instead of that part, use me in the debunking half, the second half. But he kept trying to get me to say things. He was like, would you say this? And I'd go, I can't say that. I'll say this. And there was this negotiation, but I'm pretty sure I was thinking, okay, if I say this, can they edit it? So I had to, it's like, okay, I'm going to say this thing.
Because what they need you for is color, and the color they need in a show like that is a series of people just going things like, what is this? Or, that's what they need. They need just to have those cutaways where they'd be like, and that... Yeah. And if you were
they do bumpers too. They do bumpers, and they try and convince performers or experts into giving them a bumper, and that's the package. The way they package it is, it's just going to be a bumper. We're going to use it to set up the scene. Could you say this? And those communicators who are used to it know not just to give it to them. Get that from someone else.
Yeah.
That was Scott Martis's story in our film. They told him, we want you to just tell the legend as it is, and we'll use that to introduce the segment. And that's the only appearance of him that made it into the TV show. So he comes off looking like a nut who only believes in this weird monster legend.
And he might have said, there's a legend that goes like this. And that's the part they cut.
Yep. There's another issue, though, and I know we've talked about it before, but like the other issue with it when it comes to this is that scientists generally aren't great at communicating with lay people. Some are, but it's a very different skill. It's a very different skill set to be a clear communicator with lay people compared to being a communicator with your fellow scientists. And most scientists aren't media trained, and I think that would really hugely benefit them, like knowing how to, because there are also problems with the way scientists, the scientists' need for accurate communication butts against the public's need for accurate comprehension.
Yeah,
where
the problem.
You hear it. I mean, like the clearest example is with things like when it's things like climate change or evolution or whatever, and the deniers, the people who have less good intentions will say things like, oh, so you're saying it's just a theory, or you can't prove this, or it's saying you can't. And a scientist who's being accurate has to kind of go, well, no, because it's like this, and it's and those are issues, and that really enables the misperception of what scientists mean, and intentional misperception of what scientists mean sometimes.
Right,
and
like the volcano stuff. The volcano stuff, not the bit we saw, but where. The scientist was saying, they were asked, like, they wanted to know, like, they wanted to make it threatening, and could this volcano go at any time? And he said it could happen tomorrow, could happen in a week, 10 years, 100 years. And he said there's all equal possibilities.
Yeah.
And what they go with is, it could happen tomorrow. Which, it's like, oh... It's like, you go, I set myself up for that one.
Yeah, I got me.
Yeah, which is, but again, like, that is completely true. You could win the lottery tomorrow. You won't, but you could.
Yeah.
This is an important point, I think. And it was one of the things that was really near and dear to my heart in making this movie is, I mean, people can literally die in the worst of these cases. And there was one of these where they were talking about Janine Krippner, the volcanologist who's in our film, was talking about a particular case where there was this volcano. I think it might have been in the Philippines, and the only information available to people was what the sensationalist media was putting out. And here's people who are literally at life and death peril mode because this volcano is actually actively erupting, and they're just putting out sensationalist nonsense. And so one of the things that we alluded to this earlier, Emery, is I wanted people to come out of the movie being pissed off. I wanted people to watch this movie and be angry. And I think Emery, Emery's a comedian. You guys are both comedians. Matt, you had so much great content in the film that I told Emery, this is great, but I don't want to be lighthearted or funny here. I want this to be taken seriously. And I think, this is Emery's film creatively. And I really did not want to overstep my boundaries on intruding on his creative freedom as the director of the film. But there was just a couple of times, well, maybe more than a couple, Emery, you tell me, when I said,
6.
I want to change the tone of this. So Matt, for whatever parts of the movie you're not in that you wanted to be in, that's my fault. And the reason was you were too good of a comedian and not good at making the angry, making the audience
But also,
angry.
I shouldn't be in too much of the film because it's not my story. You know, I think other Brian and I have a small part of the story in that we are sometimes misrepresented as scientists, but a far bigger part of the story is scientists being misrepresented as scientists. And
so
that should have always been the meat of the film. That should always. I was happy to be sprinkled through as a occasional glue and an occasional beats of levity.
So here's the beauty of collaboration, the lovely, perfect aspect of collaboration. You've got Brian Dunning, who wants people to come out of this film angry, and I think they do. I wanted people to go watch the film. Those two things are achieved with the content that we shot with the scientists, as well as with the content we shot with really entertaining people like Brian Mallow and like Matt Kirshen. Making it entertaining and having a film that makes you angry is what I was after. That's what I wanted. I wanted the same thing Brian did, but I also wanted another thing. I wanted a reason for people to go watch the film. I wanted to give them a good reason to watch, engage with the film. And I think we achieved that really, really well. And I think our film, unironically, is a great example of how you can talk about science and be entertaining at the same time. The film itself is an example of how these kinds of stories should be done. That's what I think.
Now I understand so much, Brian. Like I think you were trying to deviously use neuro-linguistic programming. Like I'm the angry thing in there. I'm angry about everything, and I'm the comedian.
Well, you're angry and funny. I mean, it's actually really fun to watch you just lose your S over everything and just start ranting like you do. It's fantastic.
Well, I do care about science communication, so it's genuine enough because I do care. I think it's kind of funny, like I didn't come into this project until you happened to see me on Strange Evidence, right?
I think that might have been the case. I think, I spotted you.
I think you were really far in the editing, just like you didn't have the COVID stuff. And then I think you saw me in Strange Evidence and reached out to me.
That's true. We were covering material someone else was talking about. You popped in, and I said, "Wait a minute! I know that scientific journalist. I have to call him."
Yeah, like, have I changed? Am I a journalist now? I mean, you're an editor, so why can't I be a journalist who keeps up with the latest developments?
I'm a director now.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. You used to be an editor. Now you're a director.
Yeah.
Did you edit the film?
I got some. The director is also the editor. I have an editor sitting at the bay, and he earned editor credit, and I didn't need to share editor credit with him.
Yeah.
But the director is the storyteller. I wrote the film in the edit, is what happened. So I'm the director and the writer of the film, and my editor Buck Bowen is amazing, and he really you want an editor who's got the same mindset you have, that can connect with what you're trying to do and not waste a bunch of time.
Hey, Brian,
as you mentioned, we did so much of this virtually because we were so far under budget. We had to strike almost all of our travel. So whenever anyone traveled anywhere, it was a minimum crew. Emery, did you ever go anywhere just by yourself, or did you always have at least Buck with you? I don't even know.
I don't recall.
Anyway,
I think I always had Buck.
Yeah. But so I only was in the same room physically with Emery and Buck during the editing process 3-4 times. I mean, not very often. And watching the two of them work together was just, I mean, it was weird. It's like, it was one brain and 4 hands. And I mean, they have this vibe going together that they read each other's thoughts. They know what's going on. They worked together enough that it was really something else to watch. It was really kind of fun.
Good teamwork. Brian, I don't know if you saw this, but you succeeded in making at least one person angry.
I saw that.
Congratulations.
Glad.
Thank you, Leah Art.
Hopefully not angry enough that you're going to dispute Amazon Prime's charge on your credit card.
No, she probably watched it on Tubi.
Right.
So, yeah, and Matt, I mean, obviously you care about science communication too, because you've been doing as much science communication as comedy for years now. Right?
I do, and I definitely get annoyed about inaccuracy, and I just get annoyed about I get annoyed about trickery even outside of science in TV making. It's but when it's to spread misinformation, that annoys me, and it just it annoys me on 2 levels. It annoys me as someone who wants to communicate science, but also annoys me on that sort of like comedian pissed off at the world. Like, the point, I thought your bit in that first clip that we showed, was exactly, it was great and funny, but also like, could this thing be the thing that it was originally said it was? Like by the guy who filmed it? Like that sort of misrepresentation would annoy me outside of science. And then the fact that it's also just to promote bull. So I was not upset to be involved in this project.
And on behalf of so there's the little bit what I'm bothered by what happened with me, but that was a small part of it. Like Matt, like you said, like I was way more bothered by what they do to scientists who have a reputation they have to worry about, unlike us. This scientist has his scientific credibility on the line, and you're like, you care so little about him that it's like, hey, we'll make him believe in monsters, and you're not even, it's like, that guy has a career.
Yeah, well, that's another level of and so much of this comes from just thoughtlessness, and carelessness, and also just, again, the fact that so many people involved in making the shows don't know science. Like I was saying before, that some of the shows that I've worked on recently, where I've been on through post-production, and it's going to people who weren't involved in the initial writing, who are now there to do the editing, who don't have a science background, and they will say things like, so can we say this, or can we just have this be the dialogue? And I feel like I feel like a dick every time. I'm like, no, we can't really exactly say this, because that's not what an electron really is. And just having to be like that person. But at least on those projects, they were willing to throw to me and they were willing to let me be that person and be that annoying sort of guy nixing those lines. But so much of it, that's why I think a lot of it isn't done sort of with malice or real bad intent. A lot of it is just done with just the rush to make a TV show and just thoughtlessness and just and they don't realize a lot of people in TV don't realize in general how they're mispresenting people and how they're misrepresenting people aren't that bothered. But they definitely don't realize that, no, this affects someone's scientific credibility and affects their their kudos and effects, which in turn actually, like, that is all they have as a scientist, is their sort of credibility and their kudos.
One of the things that kind of blows my mind is, when you make a TV show or film, anything that's going out, there's a legal process that the film has to go through. And I'm so confused. Like, the legal process, it's harrowing. And the one thing that's lacking in the legal, when they take it to the lawyers and they go, can we put this out? The lawyers are going, well, we have a logo here. You can't have that logo. Did you say this about that person? You're going to have to reword that, because that's going to get you a libel lawsuit. And you can't say this, and you can't do that, you can't do this. But they never, ever stop to think. I don't know why the legal team isn't going, wait a minute. This is a lie. You're literally
Well, that's because volcanoes can't sue.
Well, volcanoes can't sue?
Yeah, a volcano can't be like, look, you said that I was going to erupt tomorrow, and actually I had no such intention, and that has presented me in a very bad light.
It's ironic, too, because if Bigfoot stepped forward and said, you said some things about me that aren't accurate,
yeah,
they would at least be able to go, well, now we know you exist, so shut up.
Yeah, but amongst my kind, my feet aren't even really that big. They're kind of on the small size.
Yeah, what the hell? It's my word to use.
How
do I become Bigfoot?
Yeah.
You should see some friends of
mine. Measure the feet of everybody in the NBA and come back and tell me how big my feet are.
Hey, Brian, what's your favorite, you've covered everything in 15 years of Skeptoid. What are your favorite topics to be skeptical of?
I love the historical mysteries, but the real historical mysteries, not, that's kind of what I just gave is the name of basically every TV show on all of these networks. Historical mysteries, mysteries solved, mysteries unsolved, whatever it is. But I like the real ones. Like, one of the examples I always give, because I get asked this a lot, is like, who's the first to climb Mount Everest? Because we all know that it was Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay, right? I think 1959. But there's an older claim for two British guys whose names I'm spacing on. Is there a common theme today that I'm forgetting names today? That they may have made it to the top first. They disappeared, and their bodies. One of their bodies was found maybe 5-10 years ago. The other guy's never been found. But the suspicion has always been, maybe they made it to the top and maybe they didn't. And that's an actual question that actually there's no proof of. And so I was able to dig into the literature, what was reported at the time, what was reported by the people who were actually there. And we do have a very, very, very good idea of the answer to that question.
Really?
That's essentially, it's essentially a slam dunk. But that's the kind of thing that I love. Because
so things like the disappearing colonies or what happened to Amelia Earhart, something like that?
Yeah. Oh God, the Amelia Earhart.
What about Hitler? Have you ever covered Hitler? Crap. Did he disappear to South America or something?
Hitler
Brian proved Hitler didn't even exist.
There you go.
He didn't exist. He went to Antarctica. They had missile bases on Antarctica and on the moon. I mean, the number of Nazi mythology legends is just insane. It's over the top. But Amelia Earhart, oh my God, that has been a thorn in my side for years.
Really?
Because there's never been any remote mystery about Amelia Earhart.
What?
Except that the TV networks have all been promoting these two crackpots who are completely wrong about everything, and they have no credibility at all. But the TV networks promote their respective viewpoints. One of them thinks she crash landed on another island and lived as a castaway, and the other one thinks that she was kidnapped by the Japanese or something, and there's a conspiracy theory to cover it up. They're both absolutely, demonstrably, totally wrong.
Because I have Amelia Earhart right
Gilligan's
here.
Island pretending to be Mary Ann.
Exactly.
In fact, I came very close. Instead of doing science fiction, I came very close to doing an hour TV documentary, an hour TV special on Amelia Earhart, we were actually going to go out to where she actually is and attempt to find the airplane, which is very doable. But it was just going to cost too much money.
Whoa, a lot of.
Yeah. I mean,
Did we
where's
just
she?
lose
Okay.
someone?
Yeah.
What's up with that? Oh, there he is.
But yeah.
I'm
he's
sorry,
back.
Matt. If we're interrupting your schedule, Matt, we can
I
pause.
just went. I was trying to use the opportunity of you being the sole one on the screen to close the living room window because there's someone chatting just outside it, and I thought I'd get out and back in time, but apparently not. I was busted. I was rumbled.
Yep.
Anyway, my
I also
point
went. I disappeared. Where did I go? It's a mystery.
It's a mystery.
Who will ever solve?
My point being is that there are actual things to talk about that are true and that are freaking crazy fascinating and interesting.
Yeah.
And why won't people make a TV show about those?
Well, that's what, one of the things I rant about in science friction is the mermaid thing. And I remember on social media, I know a lot of scientists, I know a lot of marine biologists, and they were horrified at programs that were trying to suggest that Megalodon, a giant shark that did exist but is long extinct, might still exist, or mermaids, which never existed, still exist. So they were like, there are so many amazing things in the ocean. Why do you have to do this? There are incredible things in the ocean. Yeah. Real things.
I don't get it. I don't. Brian, did you ever look into who was first in powered flight?
Me or him?
Brian Dunning.
I do keep up with that kind of technology, but...
Yes, I did.
What was the answer? What was the answer?
So if this came kind of to the public consciousness in, I think it was the Brazilian Olympics, was that 2016? I think it was 2016.
I think you're right. Yeah.
During their opening ceremonies, they had some kind of old-fashioned airplane come out with some guy, and, it was a mock-up obviously for the opening ceremonies, saying, "Hey, first powered controlled flight by humans." And it's some random guy that nobody's ever heard of. And so everyone outside of Brazil is going, "Wait, what is this? It was Orville and Wilbur Wright. Okay, what's this?" So it turns out that in France and Brazil, they believe it was someone else. And it was because it was a Brazilian man who, born Brazilian, but he moved to France and he did all of his flight experiments in France. So both of these two countries love him and they consider him to be the father of manned flight. I need crib notes or something for people's names.
Brian,
Alberto Santos Dumont.
Thank you, Dumont.
You're welcome.
So what happened was
he was amazing.
After literally years after the Wright brothers would fly until they ran out of fuel, were just flying flights around cities, going all over the countryside till they ran out of fuel and landed. Years after that, the French decided to create a sporting body, like an official governing organization for the sport of flying. And they established rules for what constitutes an official flight, and it included one of their officials being on hand to certify the flight. So this Brazilian guy was the next guy to do that. And so, boom, it's certified by the French. And so that's the official first human flight.
So the first human flight observed by a Frenchman was this Brazilian guy.
I don't want to sound anti-French or anything, but yes, that's exactly right.
Way before I moved to North Carolina, unexpectedly, I always thought it was amusing that some North Carolina license plates say first in flight. And my reaction to that was always like, well, have you done anything lately? Like, that's great, but anything
to be fair, that's the first state that marijuana was grown in.
And it's going to be the last that legalizes it because of the tobacco lobby. Hey, Brian, have you heard anything about?
And if you want to look into this, I don't think you'll find this claim wanting. But according to the body that I set up to certify these things, I am the world's tallest man, and
impressive.
Can confirm. I've seen the research.
You look quite tall compared to me. You look very tall in your shot there.
I'm filling the frame right now, so that's.
Hey, Brian, have you ever Have you guys heard anything lately on Twitter? I keep seeing it's some very persistent account that's it's very anti-Darwin, but it's not anti-evolution. It's saying that Darwin wasn't, that everything he got from somebody else who also is nameless to me.
Well, you see, this is a kind of a repetitive theme in people who think they've got their own theory of whatever it is. A lot of times it's going to be someone who has a theory of how the universe actually works, of how physics is real, or how whatever evolution is, and they claim that they have overturned either Albert Einstein or Darwin. Why those two names? Because those are the only two scientists' names this person knows.
Right.
So whenever you see someone claiming to have overturned Darwin, I mean, Darwin, yes, he was one guy who published a thing, but there has been so much research in the centuries since then by so many people.
Oh yeah, this guy's not even an evolution denier. He's a Darwin denier. Like,
he's a Darwin denier. Well,
he's saying that the core ideas came from this specific person before him. So like I misread it. I was like, what is this? Like, but it's like, oh, he's got, I don't understand what his agenda is. But he pitches it, you would think he's a total anti-evolutionist by the way he says it's all lies, the Darwinists, blah, blah, blah.
No, I mean, he's misrepresenting it. That's largely true, as it is in every science. No scientist who's a real working scientist in the field works in a vacuum. Darwin certainly did not work in a vacuum. Almost all of Darwin's colleagues at the time were on board with what the current standard was.
Some physicists work in a vacuum, but they're specifically dealing with vacuums.
I work with a vacuum sometimes, not often enough.
Sorry, I stepped over you, Brian, for a dumb joke.
No, that's okay. That's a dumb joke. Brian. Would you be surprised? Oh yeah, that Brian. You didn't step up. I've made that same dumb joke. When I give science communication advice, I'll go, your work, you create a story. Your work doesn't exist in a vacuum. Well, maybe if you're an astrophysicist. So,
yeah. Well, the same thing
we
with
probably
Einstein.
have all the same jokes.
Something you hear all the time with Einstein was, hey, it was a lowly patent clerk who came up with the theory of relativity. That suggests that this lowly patent clerk was someone working on his own, in his basement, in his closet, outside of the world of academia. But no, Einstein was very much working with all of the other top physicists of the day. The only reason his day job happened to be at the patent office was because there was a shortage of jobs available in academia. So he had to work there for a time. It's the gig economy, yeah. So I mean, but he was by no means was Einstein working in a vacuum or working
that was
in
his
isolation.
side hustle.
Well, Galileo's got a lot to answer for as well.
Oh, don't get me started on the Galileo gambit. I'm just gonna get wild.
They gave him free room and board. I'm guessing, like he didn't have to go anywhere. Is how they pitched it.
My question to all of you guys is it round or flat? I just need to know if the Earth is round or flat. That's all that matters.
Oh, the Earth. Okay, that's...
Well, in some places it's flat. In some places it's rather flat.
I don't... I wouldn't claim expertise in any subject. Like I've got an undergrad degree in math. That's the only one that I would say I have, a significantly better than average knowledge of. But I do know, like, every mathematics department and every physics department has the sort of the red crayon letters, the sort of the proofs of Fermat's last theorem and here's my new theory of time emailed to me, emailed in, and there's always really basic fundamental errors in there. There's always something very simple in there, or not always simple. Sometimes it's harder to kind of unpick, but normally it's like, oh, you divided by 0 on line 6. Or no, that doesn't follow logically from that. Or you didn't realize that if you square root this, then it could be plus or minus. Or there's always something very, very basic in there. But I think that's exactly, I think, Brian was saying, there is, people think that they will turn the scientific paradigm on its head or do something that has never been done before. And that's very rare, particularly from someone who is a layperson. It pretty much every scientific subject has been so well picked at there might be like a new invention or a new technique for doing something, but not something
Yeah.
that's going to completely change the fundamental theory of a subject.
Yeah,
Or it's
every
certainly not coming from
physicist-
someone who isn't already working at a decent level in that field.
Yeah, like you said, every physicist gets those things, and even by virtue of working at a science museum in communications, I received a big packet. I never looked through. It was like a bunch of material about revolutionary. Einstein was wrong. It's always Einstein was wrong. Yeah.
I'll
You
occasionally
guys, I
see.
got an email. I got an email out of the blue a week ago from a guy. I'm not making this. It's not a bit. It sounds funny setting it up. It's not. I got an email out of the blue from a guy telling me, and it came right when I started doing promotions publicly for the film, about a guy claiming to turn the literary world on its head and giving me some facts, some truths that nobody will admit about Shakespeare. And there are a bunch of links, and he wants you to go look at these links that he's got where he's got these screeds. He's a crazy person. He's a freaking crazy person. I'm a nobody, and I get this. I go and research the guy's name. There's Reddits about him. Goes all the way back to like 01, where people are saying this guy's nuts. Don't even interact with him at all. And I respond once I checked him out and I knew what I was dealing with. I sent him back an email and I said, "This is intriguing. Crazy, amazing, if true. I need to talk to you. Can you sit down and talk with me? I'm in Los Angeles. I want to know more." Unfortunately, he's in DC and can't sit down and talk to me, and I haven't heard another word from him.
And science suffers for it, or the world of literature suffers for it.
I was dying to go in. I was dying to go into a Starbucks, sit down, and let him verbally tell me on camera this craziness. I wanted to see it, and then I was going to send it straight over to Brian.
I think the novelty wears off quickly with those. I sometimes get tagged in them as well, but sometimes I'm the sort of guest comedian co-host of Star Talk every so often, and so I'll be tagged in a tweet promoting it with Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he must get them all the time because I know if I'm in a tweet with him, I'll get a mixture, like a load of replies, and some of them are just genuine science questions because people just want to ask them science questions, or just like, "Hey, is this right?" or "What does this mean?" But then sometimes it's just like a 20 tweet thread of a theory, and it's just like boom, 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 boom. And I know just enough physics to know, yeah, that ain't it. You've not done it there, friend.
Yeah. What's your favorite kind of science, Matt? I mean, you have that math background, but since then, it's like, what sort of stuff do you gravitate towards?
Well, I still love the sort of the things that are more math or theoretical physics, and because they're also the things that I'm closest to being able to understand, at least enough to be able to sort of vaguely follow some of the papers, or at least a decent write-up of the paper. I still love a space story. I think, astronaut was the job that I would have done if I'd had any aptitude or dedication or athleticism or any of the other 20 attributes that an astronaut needs to have that I very much lack. So yeah, I still love a good space story.
Yeah.
Well, I think you've lost your maths badge because you just said math and not maths. And I'm going to send this clip over to Simon.
I normally
Singh
say mathematics just to make it.
All right, that's
yeah, that is the key
issue
right there. But what a division between England and the United States there. Math versus maths.
And then you do sports and sport the other way around.
What's that?
What is it?
You do sports and sport the other way around. We'll say, I play
you
sports.
Call it sport, and we call it sports.
Yeah.
Oh, I think we're probably. You know which one?
Giveaway that we're wrong.
There's another one. There's the big one. The one that gets me is aluminium. Aluminium. You've added a whole extra syllable to it.
Or you lost it at some point.
Yeah, you got it backwards there, Brian. Sorry, Mallow.
I'm an American, and I think I know what. You know what?
It was invented in this country. We invented the metal. You guys took it
and went back in time. But the Dunning-Kruger
Walter Raleigh
effect.
took it back to Queen Elizabeth.
The Dunning-Kruger effect or syndrome or whatever we call it. It's like, it's so amazing because I think that we're all like-minded in that we're not maybe we're not the world's geniuses, but we're clever and we know a lot of things. But I think we're all pretty careful about, well, I don't know as much as this guy that's an expert or her that's,
Yeah.
and I just can't
I call it the
understand that thing
Brian
of people.
Freddie.
Yeah, that people are so clear that they know more than all the world's medical researchers and scientists, for instance.
Yeah, it's bizarre how that's just become part of our culture suddenly, almost overnight, almost like it started like right at a particular point in time when someone was running for president, and then all of a sudden we all turned into idiots. I don't know what happened there.
Don't know what it could have been. So should we, do you want to see
Taft.
another clip from the doc, or should we, it's a little shorter than the first clip.
Play it.
All
Play
right.
it.
I
Put us
didn't.
in our circle,
Yeah, put us in the circle.
and we all need to look
Ooh,
down.
I'm
at it
very
like this.
excited
There we go.
about this.
Pictures reversed on this thing.
Gotta look the right way.
All of my marine scientist friends were really upset a couple years ago when Animal
We hear
Planet
the exact
put
same
out
story.
these mermaid shows, like a mock documentary.
We had just found a creature of fable. All of us had been wanting to say it for days,
Actor.
probably weeks.
Actor. He's an
What
actor.
we were looking at was a mermaid.
That
Can you
documentary,
pause it?
not only was it fake found footage,
Pause it. Pause
but
it.
it was
Pause
exposed
that.
by CNN
Hold on a
for
second.
hiring
Pause it.
actors and calling.
I was hoping to pause it
Yeah.
on that actor guy. How did they decide what they want a scientist to look like? He
Totally looks like a
slovenly.
scientist, doesn't he?
Right? Right? Yeah.
He looks like
He's
Richard
wearing a
Dreyfuss
dirty
in
sweatshirt,
Jaws.
a t-shirt.
But
If
that
you
was such
wanted-
a dramatic reading. You had to know he was an actor just for that nice dramatic pause.
I don't know why he's
dramatic
not in a
pauses.
lab smock.
True, no smock.
So
The
yeah,
pause
this
was
was,
just
as
like
you're
that,
saying, it might not be clear, but Animal Planet made what it totally looked like. They pitched it like it was a documentary, and then this guy is a scientist, but he's an actor, and this is on his IMDb page. IMDb
Brian,
page as well.
Brian, you looked into this. Was this guy's name, is the actor's actual name the same as what was given as the scientist's name on the show?
Right.
Do you remember?
I don't remember. I don't know, but one of the things they
I
did.
remember
did you
that
know they
subject
did
coming
this?
up, and I think that might have been the case.
In addition to this whole thing being pitched like a real documentary, and people believed it was real because it was on Animal Planet and they trust it. And it's like, you're saying this is real, and that's a scientist saying it, and they said there's a government conspiracy to keep it from us. And the kicker was they actually referred you to a website, and if you visited the website, there was a fake takedown notice so that you would get there and go, see, they even shut down the website.
Wow.
No way.
That's going
That is
pretty
genius.
far. Yeah.
That is
Wow.
genius. I love that.
I think
So
there was
according to the web here, his real name is Todd. His name in the show was Todd Maxwell, but his real name is Dr. Brain's Complexity. So that's his true name.
his true name, but he's not a scientist. That's just his name.
No, it's weird. Like, yeah,
Doctor
Doctor's
is
his
just
first
his
name,
first
Brain's
name.
middle.
All right, here's more of me yelling.
Was a mermaid.
That documentary, not only was it fake found footage,
You still have that
but it
shirt?
was exposed by CNN for hiring actors and calling them scientists.
Oh, we
It
just said
even
this.
featured guests purporting to be scientists from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA.
Actors who have IMDb presences playing scientists in this fake documentary.
And it turns out Dr. Roberts
Was that just shot a second ago when I said that?
is not really a scientist.
Thank you, CNN. My marine scientist friends were shocked and horrified.
Many
Shocked.
watching Animal Planet's Mermaids: The New Evidence saw it as proof that mermaids do exist.
On Twitter, there were so many people saying, I knew it. And of course, why else would there be all these similar stories from all over the world about mermaids?
But it was all in the name of entertainment.
And they could claim it's entertainment, but you had to look real closely at the fine print at the end titles for any acknowledgement that it's not a real documentary.
If you watch the show closely enough, Animal Planet did include this disclaimer during the closing credits. Certain events in this film are fictional.
So, mermaids aren't real?
So there you
We
go.
broke Matt's heart, man.
Science Friction, which is now available on Amazon Prime and on Tubi TV.
Dr. Paul Robertson is played by David Evans.
David Evans.
Okay.
What are his other credits, Emery?
Let's go see. David Evans is
Mermaids Part
filmography.
2.
All right. It's pretty extensive. Good God. Embers of Mirren, X-Men Destiny, Too Human. He's crew on this. So let's see. Oh, producer in some things. That's starting to explain some things. Mermaids, The Body Found, Dr. Paul Roberts interview. Yeah, this guy made a little bit of short-term career out of this. Lost Orbit, he's apparently in a video game. Yeah, that's a good ending for that career. Anyway, The Veil, Shadow of the Crown, 2021.
We should be clear that we don't have any criticism of this guy, the actor.
I don't.
No, not at all.
You know why?
I mean,
you know why I got choppy on him, because I saw that he was one of the producers too of something. So, yeah.
Yeah, he got hired for some. Who knows what he even thought of the. Well, it might have been clear to him. Hey, we're making a mock documentary. Go, and then it turns out
we're not gonna find out. You don't be proposing it. We'll find out in science fiction too.
Exactly. Let's get to the bottom and let's undo it. Why don't you, in Science Friction 2, re-edit all those programs to be more factual so that they don't get as high ratings? Because that was the problem with the Mermaid show.
Wouldn't it be great?
It was their most successful show.
Think of that idea. Take a project that is fundamentally flawed, lies, baloney, buy the rights to it, and then tell that story in a way that's honest and get better numbers with it. Boy, would that not prove our point.
Emery, how do you make your camera shake when you're shouting angrily?
The whole house shakes. No, this whole house
the
shakes.
whole firmament trembles?
Yeah, this is how it
Los
works.
Angeles is shaking. Can you not see me as well? Like it's.
It could happen tomorrow. It could happen in a month. It could happen 100 years from now. Oh man. Well, this has been really fun. I don't know if there's anything I should have asked you that you want to say and you want to get out, but how about we go around the room and say a little something about what each of us is up to and where we should check you out and what's next, Emery? Or what's
Well, for me,
yeah.
For me, what is next is I need to get as many people to watch this film because I need to get paid. And I want my producer to be happy, and he won't be happy till the entire world is angry.
I think we're pretty close.
Yeah.
It feels that way, doesn't it?
I have a lot of fun at parties.
I really liked it. I'm a little biased. I'm in it. My friends are in it. They made it. But it's a great documentary. And it's important about, the part about what they did to me, that's not important. But what they do to those scientists, I don't like that at all. And why they feel like, it's hard to criticize it because that mermaid show, when it came out, was the most popular show in the history of the Animal Planet. So all this, you can make as many documentaries as you want. Do you think it's going to change minds at Animal Planet?
Well, I know that Discovery has changed their approach. They got some new production people, and they actually, I think, publicly said that we're going to work really hard at not doing these kinds of things that the previous groups of producers were doing with Shark Week. And that's a really good move in the right direction. And I can easily say that happened because of our documentary, If I Were a Liar, Like They Used to Be. But I'm not. It happened before. But that's a good thing.
But hope maybe you will affect some change.
I hope so. I do. I mean, everyone thinks we're going to get sued for telling this.
Hey, wait.
It's scary to a producer. What?
I lost your audio for a second.
Yeah, the man didn't
Everyone
want you to be heard.
That's right. Everyone thinks you're gonna.
All I was saying is I've forgotten. No, everyone thinks we're going to get sued for telling these truths, and there's a part of me that's like, bring it. I would love to get on a stand and get your producers and the people in charge of your network to defend those lies. I'd love to see that. Let me tell you something, guys. Let me set this down so that Brian Dunning isn't upset, because it won't. There you go. Now it won't jump. It'll be very smooth when I say, because it's going to be embarrassing. And that's why we're not going to get sued. No one will bring a lawsuit against science fiction, because they know we're telling the truth, and they'll lose in court, number one. Number two, B, that's it. They just know.
Yeah.
Great. You just jinxed us. Thanks a lot.
I knew that'd scare the hell out of Brian. You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Now that you've got it out, you finally birthed it. You have to sort of nurture the documentary along a little bit. Are we going to see it in other places, hopefully, or are there any plans for? Yeah. Are there any? What are the plans for science fiction?
Let me tell you about that. So the film is with a distributor, and the distributor is in charge of, sending it out to places. But all the streaming services, they all have their own schedules. So yes, this will be available on more streaming services. And no, we do not have any idea when it will be available on which streaming services until it actually is. So if you just go to science-friction.tv, the website for the film, you can see the trailer, and you can see all the places where we currently know that you can film it, and I'll try to keep that updated. But just to get to this point, to be able to legally distribute the film, it was 2.5 years. And so many people have said, hey, this is a story you guys should make a movie about. 2.5 years to get the legal clearances and to get the insurance necessary to get the film placed with the distributor. And that was because, I can go into this in great detail, but the short reason is that we are criticizing the film industry. We're criticizing virtually every major movie studio and virtually every major TV network in science fiction. Although I try to say that more accurately, and we're not criticizing the networks or any individuals. We're criticizing a practice, and it's a practice that's found across the industry. Yet the industry sees it as being criticism of them, and so the short answer for the result was that we were unable to get industry insurance and industry legal clearances until I worked my ass off for 2.5 years to finally make it happen. So for everyone who contributed to the production of the film, we were not being lazy at all or taking an outrageous amount of time to finally get off our butts and make the film out there. We were just fighting the system that we criticize in the film. So it was an uphill battle from day one, but I'm absolutely thrilled and deeply relieved to say that the movie is finally available. And science-friction.tv, there's a link to IMDb. The IMDb page is automatically kept updated with all the links where you can go to see it, whether it's Prime or Tubi or something else. I believe next it's going to be Apple TV and Google Play, although I don't have any idea what the time frame is going to be on those. Could be tomorrow, could be 6 months. And hopefully many
could be a million years.
The
headline is you'll be able to see it on other streaming services within a million years. That's
and right now, all the links in the video description, there are links not to the IMDb page, but there are links directly to the movie on Amazon and on Tubi and science-friction.tv. Maybe not the website, but Google it. It's Science Friction. It comes up.
And
it's same if you're just on Amazon or Tubi. If you just search for Science Friction. In fact, I know you know how when you have to tap out a search with one letter at a time on Tubi, if you go SC, there's a lot of SCs. But the I pretty much starts to get you there, or the I or the E, and it'll show up in the selections.
Right.
The world we live in.
Yeah, you can follow our Twitter accounts. Brian has his. what's your Twitter account, Brian Dunning?
Brian Dunning.
And you also have Skeptoid, right?
Yeah.
Skeptoid is the
these
Twitter
links
for
are
the.
all in the video description to each
Yeah.
of your Skeptoid and
Okay.
Brian Dunning. Emery Emery II is your Twitter handle.
That's correct. The second. And did you put in sci-friction film?
I think so. I did in some places.
All right. So
and Matt Kirshen
Yeah,
is at
we-
Matt Kirshen.
Yep, and then
I
probably
also put
movie has
science.
its
at
own.
Probably Science as well.
Probably
All
Science.
those links are there, and if science friction film isn't sci-friction
Yeah, it's sci-friction film. Is our that's our Twitter for the film. And I want to say that we've invited everybody in the movie. I invited everybody on Twitter to please make a public statement on Twitter about whether or not they are happy with and approve the edit of themselves in our film. That's how I'd like to see that as a public practice, a business practice in film and television. That would be really beautiful.
Our original idea was to have that as the end credits were rolling. On like one half of the screen, here's the end credits, and on the other half of the screen, here is just a stupid little iPhone clip of someone saying, "Yeah, I'm Matt Kirshen, and I approve of the way I was edited in this film." Whatever it is they want to say, and we tried to do
with
that.
the exception of that last beat.
friggin' nobody did it, and so we didn't have enough of them to be able to put that in the film.
Right.
But I mean, we were super conscientious about not being guilty of the practice that we're criticizing in the film.
Yeah,
absolutely
even
honest in the way we
accidentally. I
edit.
wanted to make sure we didn't accidentally get something wrong.
Yeah.
Even, you know,
Yeah.
and that's my point of saying, did we get something wrong? Let us know.
And Matt, I guess you're lining up a bunch of shows to ride on the coattails of science friction now.
I'm starting to get back on the road now. I was avoiding it for a long time on account of the stuff, but I'm starting to get it back out there now. So yeah, if you look out on my social media, Twitter's generally the best place, and I'll announce it on the podcast and everything. If I'm going back out.
Fully bought into this.
It's at Matt Kirshen and at Probably Science.
Yes.
What's coming up on Probably Science? What kind of stuff have you been doing?
Oh, well, we never know until it's always the week in science news. So we never know until until it's like recording time. We're like, what are the stories this week? It's always we're a topical podcast, so so you got to ask the world of science what's coming up.
Well, the science of nuclear annihilation should be the next show.
Sure.
And the last.
Well, thank you guys. This has been a lot of fun, and I've kept you long enough, but I heartily recommend, and not just because we're in it and involved. It's a great documentary, and it's an important subject, and you get to see lots of you don't want to name people. There's tons of great people in it. Michael Sherman and also
Shermer.
if you like
Michael Shermer.
I said Sherman.
We got
Whatever.
we can
edit that in
there.
post. Shermer. If you like Gilbert Gottfried, then treat the documentary like you treat a Marvel film and wait until the credits are completely over.
I think we can say, I don't know if that's true, so but it may be true that Science Friction is Gilbert Gottfried's final film.
Final film, maybe? I don't know. He may have shot something. It took us long enough with legal that he may have shot something between then and now. So it's hard to say for sure.
Conveniently is in no position to be suing you or disagreeing with you.
Gilbert Gottfried. I'll tell you what you're going to enjoy. You're going to enjoy a production card for my production company. My production company, and his voice comes in. I won't tell you what it says. I'll let Alexa tell you what it says.
So thank you guys very much, and I'm gonna wrap. Don't go away. I'll be back in just a second, but this has been a lot of fun. Let's start this up and see what happens. You guys, Science Friction, the film, go see it. I'm going to travel this week, and I'll probably have some more live shows next week, but we're on a loose schedule. So I'll be putting out little clips as well. So check out this. Our theme music is by LoganWhitehurst.com. You can check him out there and his artist page on Spotify. That's it. Thanks for watching. Please share this. And thank you. Good night.